and we're going to get to them right now because we know that, of course, the USA, that's going to be our first area of focus right now. The U.S. men's national team, a lot of eyes on them. A lot of eyes will be on them. And we want to know exactly what their success bar should be for this World Cup, because we know that the USA has famously made the quarterfinals of a World Cup before. That kind of set the bar. Now this is a different format, an expanded World Cup. It is on home soil. We talk about how this should be the most talented squad of U.S. players that we have seen, more and more playing over Europe. So is it quarterfinals or bust for the USA, Herc?
On Futbol Americas, the panel discusses expectations for the United States men's national soccer team ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be hosted in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. With the tournament about 100 days away, the big question is, what defines success for the USMNT? Herculez Gomez explains how thin the margins are in World Cups, referencing the 2002 quarterfinal run and other tournaments where small moments changed everything. The panel suggests that winning the group is crucial to getting a favorable knockout path, potentially facing Belgium and then Spain, while finishing second could mean an early clash with Argentina. They conclude that at minimum the U.S. must get out of the group, and realistically, a quarterfinal appearance should be the bar, especially on home soil with this talented generation.
Can we, for a second, talk about the expectations and how one gets there, how thin the margins are, how fine the lines are? Let's see. The two most recent that I could think of, the 2002 World Cup, and Casey was part of this group, historical quarterfinal appearance, where they were a blown handball.
All right, so ESPN is asking the big question. What is success for the USMNT at the 2026 World Cup? Let's be real here. This is not just another tournament. This is a home World Cup. This is your moment. This is your generation. When you host a World Cup, the excuses disappear. Now, yes, like they said, the margins are razor thin. One handball, one goal line clearance, one lucky bounce, and history changes. We've seen it before. The 2002 run, inches away from a semifinal. That's how brutal and beautiful this tournament is. But here's where I slightly raise the standard. This isn't the early 2000s anymore. This U.S. team has more players in Europe than ever before. They've got experience, they've got exposure, and they've got expectations. You can't call this a golden generation and then settle for just showing up. For me, getting out of the group is the absolute minimum. No debate.
Torsten Frings on the goal line, Greg Berhalter corner kick, away from being in a semifinal in our modern era. Casey will tell you that World Cup, they went 1-1-1 in group play. The last game of group play, lost by multiple goals to Poland, and were on their way home until South Korea backdoored the U.S. men's national team to the next round with the goal versus...
Round of 32 exit? That's a failure. Round of 16? Acceptable, but not inspiring. Quarterfinals? Now we're talking. That's where the bar should be. And Herc is right. Winning the group is everything. Because second place could mean Argentina early. And if that happens, that dream could end very fast. But here's the thing. If you're scared of Argentina, Spain, Belgium, then what are we even doing here? You're at home. The crowd is yours. The energy is yours. The narrative is yours. This is a chance to captivate the entire nation, to grow the sport in the U.S. in a way we haven't seen in decades. So for GoalLine Debate, I'm saying this clearly. Quarterfinals is the standard. Anything less feels like a missed opportunity. And if they somehow push beyond that, then we're talking about a moment that changes U.S. soccer forever.
It would not feel like it, no, by no means, no. It would actually feel like
semifinal would make it a success.
Well, semifinal would make it a miracle, to be honest. And look, let's just call a spade here. Morocco had one of the craziest schedules you could ever imagine and made it to a semifinal. With this current format...
In this segment of Futbol Americas, the panel continues debating expectations for the United States men's national soccer team at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Jeff Carlisle emphasizes that reaching the round of 16 would not be disgraceful, especially if the U.S. faces heavyweights like Belgium or Argentina. Winning the group is highlighted as crucial, but the group itself is unpredictable. The U.S. could realistically win all 3 games or lose all 3. Casey Keller stresses realism, referencing the loss to the Netherlands in Qatar and questioning whether it was fair to expect the U.S. to win that matchup. Herculez Gomez raises the stakes, suggesting that simply repeating a quarterfinal appearance may not feel like success, yet admits that given the strength of teams like Spain and the expanded format, expectations may exceed reality. The debate centers on balancing ambition with realism. Should this talented home soil squad aim for a miracle or accept that the margins at World Cups are brutally thin?
Throw another World Cup contender into that. Throw another team that could be a semifinalist in any other format into that. It gets that much more difficult. But I am of the train of thought that if the U.S. men's national team was ever going to do anything of worth in a World Cup, certainly at home. In a World
So continuing this debate, and this is where it gets really interesting. Because now we're not just asking what's possible, we're asking what's realistic. Jeff says round of 16 might be the most likely outcome. Casey says it depends on who you draw. And honestly, they're not wrong. Let's rewind to Qatar. The U.S. faced the Netherlands. Be honest, did anyone truly expect them to dominate that Dutch side? Probably not. That wasn't a choke. That was a gap in quality. And that's the uncomfortable truth we have to address again heading into 2026. Yes, this is the most talented U.S. player pool we've seen. Yes, it's on home soil. Yes, this is their chance to become legends in American soccer history. But talent on paper doesn't automatically beat Spain. It doesn't automatically beat Argentina. Winning the group is everything. Because if you don't, you're walking straight into the storm early. And here's the bigger question. Do this U.S. team have that tournament DNA?
Cup with what many presume is the pool with the most talented players you've ever had, with a coach of a European pedigree and an investment made in this program, certainly this would be the moment. But what about this team and its past makes us feel that come Spain...
Because World Cups aren't won by the prettiest football. They're won by grit, by moments, by mentality. Morocco proved that last time. But replicating that, that's not strategy, that's lightning in a bottle. So here's where I stand. Quarterfinals might not feel historic because they've done it before. But realistically, that might still be the ceiling. And if we're demanding semifinals, we might be asking for a miracle. This team has the talent. The investment is there. The home crowd will be there. But when they face a Spain, when they face a true giant, do they have that extra level? That's the real debate. Because ambition says dream big. Reality says respect the gap. And 2026 will show us exactly where the U.S. truly stand in world football. Soccer ball fire.
Because nobody knows that team, especially in 2002, better than you. And it's something that you've spoken about on this show time and time again, that you wanted to see more of that fight, more of that grit, which was something that was really synonymous to U.S. men's national team players. So how would you support, how would you compare that team, your team, with the one that we see now?
In this segment of Futbol Americas, the debate shifts to comparing the current United States men's national soccer team squad with the 2002 and 2010 teams that set the benchmark for World Cup success. The panel agrees that today's players are individually more talented, playing at higher club levels, but question whether they have the same battle-tested mentality. The 2002 and 2010 squads had signature wins, including the famous Confederations Cup victory over Spain and other major results that proved they belonged. This current group, despite strong friendlies under Mauricio Pochettino, lacks a defining competitive win. The discussion also highlights the absence of traditional World Cup qualifying battles due to format changes, meaning this team hasn't endured the same pressure-filled environments. Ultimately, the question isn't about talent. It's about cohesion, grit, competitive edge, and whether this generation has truly been tested before stepping onto the biggest stage.
Well, I agree with Jeff that I think if you look at where the players are playing, I think individually, you got to look at this current team and just kind of go, okay, I expect, good things from that group. But there's also a case, a very fine case, and I think Kirk and Jeff made really good points that they're not playing. They haven't had to play 2 years.
Now this is where the debate gets serious. Because for the first time, we're not questioning talent. We're questioning character. Let's be honest, man for man. This might be the most technically gifted U.S. squad we've ever seen. Players in Europe, big clubs, big contracts, big reputations. But here's the problem. Talent doesn't automatically equal tournament success. Go back to 2002. Go back to 2010. Those teams weren't just talented, they were hardened. They went through brutal qualifying campaigns. They played in hostile stadiums. They had signature wins that made the world pay attention. This current team? Where's that moment? Where's the win that makes you sit back and say, okay, they belong with the elite?
Of competitive matches. If you've ever played like a Honduras or an El Salvador or a Trinidad, you play them in a friendly, and then you play them in a World Cup qualifier in their country, where if they win the match, you know their president's going to declare a national holiday. It is a completely...
Friendlies are nice. A 5-1 scoreline sounds impressive. But friendlies don't replicate knockout pressure. They don't replicate playing in a stadium where the entire nation wants you to fail. That's what built those older teams. And here's the deeper concern: cohesion. When you don't go through years of competitive qualifying battles, you miss out on building that survival mentality. That edge. That grit that U.S. teams used to be known for. Yes, individually they're better. But are they tougher? Because World Cups are not won by resumes. They're won by moments. And until this group produces a true signature win, not just against a struggling rival, but against a real heavyweight, there will always be that doubt in the back of our minds. This generation has the ceiling, but do they have the scars? 2026 won't test their talent. It will test their mentality. And that's the part we still haven't seen answered. Soccer ball fire.
You know, you think about what these guys have done, and you can't always pick your path. I mean, you can only beat the team that's in front of you, as the old saying goes. But, you know, I do think that this group of players still has something to prove. I mean, granted, that game against Iran, the final group.
In this segment of Futbol Americas, the panel questions whether the current United States men's national soccer team has produced true World Cup-defining moments like past legends such as Landon Donovan or Clint Dempsey. The biggest achievement of this generation so far is seen as the 1-1 draw against England in Qatar, with Christian Pulisic's decisive goal against Iran standing out as a pressure moment, but still not at the iconic level of previous eras. The discussion shifts to the massive opportunity this home World Cup presents. Players like Pulisic, Weston McKennie, and Sergiño Dest could become national icons and elevate soccer's status in America if they make a deep run, similar to the 1994 generation. The focus then turns to head coach Mauricio Pochettino, questioning the team's identity. Herculez Gomez argues that under Pochettino, the team has begun shedding its soft label, suggesting a cultural shift in mentality and accountability as the tournament approaches.
Stage match, you know, they did come through in the clutch. Christian Pulisic came through in a big way and paid for it, if I remember right.
Gave up a testicle.
Yeah. But, you know, so they have a moment where, you know, they did stare down some pretty intense pressure.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's...
Now this is where everything comes together. Because talent? We've talked about it. Expectations? We've debated it. But moments? That's what defines generations. When you say Landon Donovan, you think Algeria. When you say Tim Howard, you think Belgium. Those are World Cup moments. Legacy-defining moments. This current U.S. team? Their biggest moment is a 1-1 draw against England. That's respectable, but it's not iconic. Yes, Christian Pulisic delivered against Iran under pressure. And credit where it's due, that was clutch. But we're still waiting for that defining explosion on the biggest stage. And here's the thing. 2026 is their chance to rewrite everything. This isn't just about reaching a quarterfinal. This is about becoming household names in a country that's still deciding how much it truly loves this sport. If this group makes a run at home,
I'm wanting more. I'm sure a lot of people are wanting more, and they want to see that big moment. They want to see almost that Algeria moment. Not so much thinking of the opponent, but just the moment and the pressure and the stakes involved. And, you know, I still think this group has more to give, and I think along with a lot of other people,
they won't just win games. They'll change the trajectory of soccer in the United States. That's how big this is. Now let's talk identity, because that's been the lingering question. Under Mauricio Pochettino, something feels different. For years, the criticism was simple. This team was soft. When the pressure rose, they shrank. When opponents got physical, they disappeared. But recently, There's been a shift, a tougher edge, a line drawn in the sand. It feels like Pochettino has demanded commitment. You're either all in or you're out. That cultural reset might be more important than tactics. Because at a World Cup, identity wins games. Mentality wins duels. Unity wins moments. The US still hasn't had their defining chapter. But 100 days out, you can feel the opportunity building. The question is simple now. Will this be the generation we remember for potential? Or the one we remember for history? Soccer ball fire.